Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
How are you today? So I'm going to be preaching to you. As you know, today is 9 of Av, Tisha B'Av. This is a very important date in the Jewish calendar. Also, this Shabbat is Shabbat Devarim, but it's called in tradition Shabbat Chason. Shabbat Chason, the Chason means the vision, the Shabbat of the vision. And it's not coincidental that we're actually in the Parasha Devarim at the same time that we are here in Shabbat Chason. Because the Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, is about the vision that Moses has. It's in first person. He's talking about all the things that the children is happening. It's like a recap of the 40 years in the desert. Tisha B'Av is very important in our calendar. Actually, we don't fast in Shabbat. So actually, the fasting starts tonight around 7:40, and it goes for 24 hours. You don't drink or eat in this fast. You should not eat or drink in any fast, but that's another subject. But this is and actually it comes from the book of Zechariah. We're talking about the 4 fasts. So Tisha B'Av is the day where it happened many different events in Jewish history. It happened the destruction of both 2 temples on the same day. They were almost around 500 years apart of the destruction from the first to the second. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But there happened many different events in this day. So because we are not allowed to fast on Shabbat, because the Shabbat is a very happy day that we rest and we eat, that the fasting is postponed to starting actually tomorrow at sunset. That's the reason we start, and we start this fast commemorating the destruction of the temple. And this is what we do in Tisha B'Av. So I encourage everybody who has never fasted in Tisha B'Av. It's a very important day in the Jewish calendar, because the destruction of the temple, what it means to all of us, is that actually we're having an exile. And that's what it means. When the destruction of the temple happened in the year 70 for the second temple, Herod's temple, that means that there was a destruction. It means exile. The people have to be exiled. Actually, I was not long ago in Rome, and actually I had the opportunity to witness the Colosseum that was built by the exiles of the Jewish people. And also I have the opportunity to witness the Arch of Titus, where actually you can see the menorah and everything. It was one of the highlights of my trip to be able to see actually the history that they were commemorating how they destroyed the temple. And that's what happened in Tisha B'Av. And now I'm just it's exciting because I'm like, wow, I actually saw the Arch of Titus where they're commemorating actually what happened in this day. That was the destruction of the temple. So it's really cool when you see history. Some of the events that we have there at Tisha B'Av, it's the spies returning from the promised land with a bad report. Remember that they, in the book of Numbers, actually, they take the spies and they say, hey, you're going to go and you're going to seek up the land and you're going to go to this place in the land and you're going to tell us a report of this, what is going to happen. Well, that happened in the same day, the 9th of Av, according to tradition. Also, both holy temples were destroyed at the same day. This is amazing because it happened in around 500 years span from the first temple to the second temple, and both temples were destroyed on the same day, meaning there is no coincidence. And there is no coincidence in God's calendar. Things happen for a reason. God has a calendar and things happen for a reason. Also, this was the day that actually was crushed, the Bar Kokhba revolt. Remember that the Bar Kokhba revolt was this historic event where the people the Jewish people raised up. They named this guy called Bar Kokhba to be their Messianic leader, and then the rebellion was totally crushed. That happened. It was one of the biggest defeats in whole Jewish history. thousands of people were crushed by the Roman Empire, and they were totally destroyed. And that was when they decided not to fight anymore, and that was the year 70 was the destruction of the temple. The Jewish people go to different lands to exile, but this was the day that actually they decided we're not going to fight anymore. There was a very, very bad defeat. Also, this day also commemorates the expulsion of the people, the Jewish people in England. So there was an expulsion happened on the 9th of Av. And also, this was the day where expelled all the Jewish people from Spain and Portugal. First of Spain in 1492. This was also in the 9th of Av. It's interesting because the decree, I was also in the Alhambra in Spain, where the decree was signed by the kings, the Catholic kings, Isabella and Fernando and Isabella Fernando, and they signed this decree in the Alhambra. But actually, the day when they expelled the Jewish people, they gave them a time so they have to decide, hey, are you going to stay? Or you are going to stay and you are going to be here with us? Well, you have to convert to Catholicism or Christianity at that time, or you have to go out of the country, and they had to take that decision. It took them from the month of March, and they were spent around the month of August, that was in the Jewish calendar, the 9th of Av. So all these events happened in the 9th of Av. Also, we're talking about the destruction of the temple. You have to understand why it's so tragic, the destruction of the temple. The destruction of the temple not only means exile, but also means that the Jewish people cannot gather and worship the Lord together. Many of us, we have an idea about the temple. Next slide. We have this, I don't think that's it. There is an image from the temples. That's the second slide, maybe. No? Okay, well, it's not there. Okay, so we have the Solomon Temple. That was the first temple and was destroyed in 586 BCE. That was the first exile that the Jewish people go, and they were for that was the time that happened with Jeremiah. Jeremiah was telling them, hey, you need to repent, you need to change your life. If that doesn't happen, it's going to come, the Babylonians are going to come and destroy. And they destroyed the temple. People did not hear the words of Jeremiah. And actually, Jeremiah witnessed the destruction of the first temple, the Solomon's temple, when the Ark of the Covenant was there. Remember? That was when we not only have, but we have actually the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant has the law. They have the Ten Commandments. I have the different elements there. So it was the witness that actually the Jewish people were giving those tablets. Also, in the destruction of this happened in the year 70. The Jewish people returned from the exile from Babylon. You remember those stories of Ezra and Nehemiah and all that. They rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And then finally, they do this. They rebuild the temple. It's very important for people to understand that you don't need the temple to start offering sacrifices. You just need an altar. That's the first thing that you need to have. That's the reason right now there are preparations in Israel to get the red heifer, because the red heifer would allow them to be clean, the priest, so they can do the sacrifices. Without a red heifer, so there's no option to have a fair temple. You need to have the red heifer first, and you can have all the preparations. One of the problems right now about the third temple is that actually the Holy of Holies is where the Dome of the Rock is right now. So imagine that. You take the Dome of the Rock, World War III. So it can only happen, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, only can happen when the Messiah comes for that reason. Because it's in a very difficult place right now, politically speaking, you know? But it will happen. We'll have a third temple. And that's what we sometimes tend to rationalize, like spiritualize certain aspects of the scriptures. And we'll talk about sometimes we read these passages in Corinthians and like we are we're the temple of the Holy Spirit. Yeah, we are. Of course we are. You know, we have to make our dwelling holy so the Holy Spirit can habitate in us, right? I'm not denying that. But the problem is that sometimes we take to the extent that we don't need a temple. We don't need a temple anymore. But we do. We do need a temple. Why do we need a temple? Because the temple represents the dwelling place of the presence of the Lord. It's where the Shekinah, the presence of the Lord, will reside in the future, and is when Yeshua is going to reign. Yes. Yeshua is going to inaugurate the first temple. Have you ever thought about that? He's going to be reigning from there, and he's going to have the Levites and everything, and they used to have the custom. Do you know that many of the prayers that we do in the Shacharit, in the evening service, in the morning service, they were part of the temple? The majority of the part of the Sukkot de Simbra is when we talk about the praising and the worship. The majority of that, there are psalms. Those psalms were recited in the temple. You know, the Ashrei and all that we sing. This was part of the temple worship. So when we do Shacharit, when we do the prayers, we're actually doing what the Jewish people did thousands of years ago in the temple. We are practicing to that process. So the next slide about Acts. Perfect. So this is a question that the apostles asked to Yeshua in Acts 1:6-9. It says, so then they have come together and they ask. This is in the moment of the ascension. Yeshua's ascending and say, Lord, will this time restore the kingdom of Israel? And he said to them, it is not for you to know the times nor the seasons that the Father has fixed in his own authority. But the main question is why the apostles, they saw Yeshua die, being buried, and resurrected. And after this, they're questioning, hey, Lord, will you restore the kingdom of Israel? What is the Messianic expectation? They know that Yeshua have to fulfill this role to be a Davidic king. But he's not yet. But it's like, when are you going to restore Israel in his full glory? That's what the apostles are asking to Yeshua. When? When are you going to fulfill all these promises from David and Jeremiah and Isaiah that is going to be this Messiah? When? When are you going to? And this is a very important question because it's not going to be complete until Yeshua is king over all the nations. Yeshua has to come as the Messiah of Israel, and is going to be the ruler of the whole world. Can I say amen there? Yes. It's going to be amazing, because on that day there will be no crying, no more pain, no anything. It's going to be a glorious day. And in that day we'll have the temple in Jerusalem. And you know what is the temple means? It's going to be a place for worship for all nations. Yeah. That's the reason we cry on Tisha B'Av. Because that means that we don't have that we don't have a temple and we don't have redemption. You cannot separate salvation from redemption. Salvation and redemption go together. Okay? We are safe by the blood of Yeshua. But that is a part of the process. The whole process, we receive salvation with the redemption in the end days. Because all the promises that we read in the Bible is about this physical kingdom. The earth is going to be changed. Jerusalem, is going to be happening here. The resurrection, there's going to be a resurrection of the dead. We're going to have new bodies. For all that they are old or have pains, it's like you won't have any more pains, nor anything else. That would be amazing. And that's what we have to be longing to to this day that is not going to be more pain. Do you have any pains? Do you have diseases? Do you have issues, stress, work? All those things are going to be gone. And that's the reason why we are crying on Tisha B'Av. Then I wanted to go a little bit about Genesis 45:14, that to make you understand this concept about the two messiahs. We started actually with two messiahs. And in Genesis 45:14, it says, he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin went upon his neck. This is a part in Genesis where we talk. I'm putting there in the screens the commentary of Rashi, and I'm going to explain a little bit. But I wanted to start to understand this part of Genesis. In Genesis, remember that in that part, Joseph is with his brothers and say, I'm Joseph, I'm alive. You know? But what is happening? Remember that Judah has to stood up, and there were Joseph and Judah went head to head because they wanted to take Benjamin. But at the end, when that happened at the end of the story, they said that Benjamin wept on his neck and Joseph wept on Benjamin's neck. Rashi has a very interesting commentary on here. It says, for the temples were to be Benjamin's territory, in which it ultimately laid in ruins. So they're weeping, according to the Midrash, they're weeping, they're crying, because they foresee in the future the destruction of the two temples. The ruins of Benjamin, meaning the temple, the tabernacle that it was there. Remember that we have a tabernacle? Oh. We used to have a tabernacle in Shiloh, and it was not anymore, and it was in the territory of Joseph, of the tribes of Joseph. And then we have, and Benjamin wept on his neck, meaning about the tabernacle, but also Joseph wept because the destruction of the temple, they were close to Benjamin's territory. Everything that we see in the Torah is prophetic. The biggest book of prophecy that we have, we think about Revelation, about Isaiah. No, the biggest prophecy book is the Torah. The Torah is the biggest prophecy book we have, because everything that happened to our forefathers, it will happen again to their children. That's one of the sages says. So everything that happened to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob will happen again. So we have this idea, okay? We have this idea that Rashi is commenting, and they're weeping because the temple, the tabernacle that is not laying the territory, and also the temples that were destroyed. In Sanhedrin 98a, it's on the Babylonian Talmud, we have a very interesting story where they talk, the rabbis comment on the two messiahs. So I'm going to read a little bit. I don't know if there is the slide there. Oh, perfect. The two messiahs, okay? In Sanhedrin 98, it says, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi raises a contradiction between the two depictions of the coming of the Messiah. Check this out. This is Jewish commentary, not talking about Christian commentary. This is Jewish commentary of the Talmud. They say, it is written, they came with the clouds on the heaven. They feel that there is a contradiction, because in some point in Daniel, you have the Messiah coming from the clouds. Yes. That's Daniel 7, 13, 14. But at the same time, you have a Messiah that is coming in a donkey. In Zechariah 9:9. And he says, Rabbi, check this out. This will blow your mind. I don't know if you have ever read this part of the Talmud, but it says, Rabbi Alexander explains, if the Jewish people merit the redemption, the Messiah will come in miraculous manner with the clouds in heaven. But if they do not merit the redemption, the Messiah will come lowly in a riding on a donkey. What it means is that we have two Messiahs, the Messiah son of Joseph and Messiah son of David. Yeshua is the only Messiah. There are not two Messiahs, it's just one Messiah. But they have two different purposes. Okay? What is the idea that the Messiah, son of Joseph, it's an ox? And why the Messiah, son of David, is represented as a donkey? Have you ever questioned why? Carlos, are you not like switching pictures because the donkey should be the Messiah ben Joseph because he went on a donkey? Not really. Actually, this is based on Genesis 13:6. It's where he talks about Esau. Esau is a portion, and he said that he's going to give oxen and donkeys. And the rabbis take these references. This is the two Messiahs, the Messiah son of Joseph and the Messiah son of David. What is the purpose of the ox? The purpose of the ox is related with Joseph. Why? Because Joseph was a character into the Bible that they used to say they spoke 70 languages, but it was in the nations. That was the role of Notion, going into the nations. You start seeing the role of the Messiah now. Why he has to go? Israel was not worth it for grant a Messiah. So the Messiah, son of Joseph, has to come in a donkey. Okay? Joseph and Judah, we can see it. We were head to head in Genesis. But Judah was cultivating the holiness into the Jewish people. They have two purposes. The idea is that one time, these two forces, these two messiahs will be into one. One Messiah that is going to be Yeshua. But now we see only one aspect of Yeshua, the son of Joseph, the suffering servant of Isaiah 53. But there is going to be a time he's going to be king over all nations. Amen? Why the ox? Because the ox helps to plow the ground and prepare the area to be planted. That's the reason that is represented with an ox. We need to prepare the ground for Messiah ben David to be king. Right? The donkey is for carrying the produce of the field. So we have to prepare first the field so it's ready. So when the Messiah, son of David, comes, Yeshua as a son of David, comes and carry all this fruit. You remember how many times Yeshua speaks about fruit? Why do we have to be fruit? Because he's going to carry the fruit with him. Right? With a donkey. That's his role. But right now we need to prepare the ground. So what is the purpose of the Messianic movement? Remember that Benjamin was was the only brother that was not involved into the sale of Joseph. Do you remember that? He was not involved because he was too little to be involved into that. What Benjamin represents in the prophetic picture? Do you know what? It represents Messianic Judaism. Why? Because it's not involved in the sale of Joseph. Have you ever thought about that? What is the role of Messianic Judaism? Have you ever thought about that? What is the role of the Messianic Jews and Messianic Gentiles who are crafted into this prophetic call that we are having? Have you ever thought about that? Well, Rabbi Shapir, in his new book, The Rivka Remnant, I have it with here, a copy. I studied for Rabbi Shapir for the last 6 years, and he talks about this concept, in the concept of Rivka and Eliezer. In the story of Rivka, you remember when Eliezer goes with Rivka in the book of Genesis, and he's trying to bring the bride for Isaac. Okay? So Eliezer is the meeting point. Messianic Judaism is the Eliezer. Messianic Judaism is the Benjamin. Without Benjamin, we don't have the story of unification between Joseph and Judah. We won't have the unifications of the two messiahs, two representatives of the Messiah. We have Joseph in one hand, and we have David in one hand. Our role today is take out Joseph, because remember, in Genesis, what happened? Everybody saw Joseph, and he looked like an Egyptian. Right? Nobody could see it. The brothers like, oh, he's an Egyptian. They could not see Joseph. They thought Joseph is dead. For the Jewish people, when they see Yeshua, Jesus, they see, oh, he's a Roman. He's a Greek. But he's not one of us. He cannot be. He has to many different wear costumes and everything. When we come here to the synagogue and we worship the Lord in the manner of the Jewish people, we take out these clothes that the Messiah has having for the last 2,000 years in the exile, and we are bringing him back home. That is the role of Messianic Judaism, is take the clothing that Yeshua had for 2,000 years in Christianity and bring him back as the Jewish Messiah. And that is a catalysm for the Messiah, son of David, to come. Do you see now clear the picture? How important is our role in Messianic Judaism? To bring the Messiah back home. That is the purpose. And to take the clothes that they have for 2,000 years. All these misinterpretations, all these things, our role is a process of reunification between Christianity and Judaism. And we're being Eliezer. We're being that middle part. Eliezer actually represents the Jewish people, the Jewish believers that are trying to bring the remnant of the bride. And that's the role. So, why was destroyed the temple? That's what we have to ask. Well, the last temple, the first temple, was destroyed because they didn't keep the Shemitah year and they were into idolatry. But the second temple is different because the Jewish people were doing the mitzvot, they were doing the commandments, they were loyal to God, they were doing everything good. But there was one little mistake. The sages says that they commit sinan hinam, baseless hatred. And baseless hatred was the point of the destruction of the temple. Sinat hinam. How do we revert back this terrible calamity that happened on the night of Av? We have to go contrary to that. We have to do a tikkun. Tikkun means in Hebrew reparation. How will we repair? Do it ahabat hinam. Baseless love. Do you know why in the New Testament they talk so much about love? Love your neighbor, and Yeshua is so emphatic about love because he knew at that time that what Israel needed is not more. They were observant already, they were doing the right things, they had the temple, there were a lot of things, but they were not loving each other. And that was why the temple was destroyed, and was the reason why we mourn about the temple. So the only way when you do something, when you fail on something, the most important part of what it is, to learn the lessons of your failures. If you knew that they were doing everything right, but they were not loving each other, they're based like hatred. There are many stories in the Mishnah that talks about this, how the Jewish people just didn't care to each other. They care more about doing the commandments than loving each other. So this is a beautiful time that we can go into the fast and pray to the Lord that we can be restored and our hearts be able to love, baseless love. To start loving to each other in community. To each other, to the Jewish people, so we can bring the Messiah. Yeah, but the Lord is like, Carlos, what are you talking about bringing the Messiah? Is not the Messiah will come? Yeah, of course, but why do you think it happened? Why it has delayed the Messiah for 2,000 years? It's because we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. If the Messiah is not here, it's meaning that we are not doing something. You know, the first redemption, when he called the Jewish people to Mount Sinai, who initiated the redemption? God. But the second redemption, what is going to happen in the second redemption? We have to initiate the second redemption. For redemption, God went down to Mount Sinai. He gave the law and everything. And then you have my instructions, you have my Torah. And now, what is our role? We roll with the Messiah, son of Joseph, prepare the ground so it can be fertile and we can have fruit. And how do we do that? With acts of baseless love to each other. Giving love no matter what. And more importantly, start loving the Jewish people in a very profound way. So I just wanted to give you some reflections about this. And this is not coincidental. Parasha Devarim talk about all the failures that the Jewish people had. All these failures. And I know that each one of you, I have a lot of failures. And sometimes I feel bad about it. And shame about it sometimes. But I can tell you something. You know, the best, if I just ashamed about it, or what do I learn from those lessons? What do we learning from? The reason we have the Torah is so we can learn from the mistakes of the forefathers, you know? Everybody did mistakes. The reason the Torah talks about so much about mistakes, and King David's having mistakes, and the Bible, and everybody having mistakes, is so we can learn about that. And we can become better people, more loving, more understanding, more compassionate one another. So I want to challenge you today to start loving people and to have compassion to each other and understanding. And we're in different, everybody's in a different pace, but we're going to the same place. Finally, we're all going to Jerusalem. We wanted to see King Messiah, Yeshua. We wanted to see her reigning from there. So we have work to do. So the Messiah won't delay anymore. When is going to be the Messiah? I don't have a clue. Yeshua didn't know. Only the Father knows. I cannot tell you it's going to be in 6 years, or it's going to be in 100 years, it's going to be in 50 years. It depends upon us that we prepare the ground so it will be fertile for him to come. In this process of reunification between Joseph, the Messiah, son of Joseph, and Messiah, son of David. So in the end, it's going to be one Messiah. And we're going to be a fullness of Yeshua. We have seen one part of Yeshua. We have not seen him as a king yet. Is our king? Absolutely, he's the king. He rules everything, but he has not taken possession yet of his kingdom. So what we need to do? Prepare his kingdom. Do the work that is with baseless love. There is a quote from Rabbi Abraham Isaac Cook. And in this quote, Abraham Isaac Cook, he was the first chief rabbi of the state of Israel. He was just an amazing. So if you wanted to read anything about Rabbi Cook, it's just incredible. And he was the first Ashkenazi leader in there. And he says, if we were destroyed and the war with us do baseless hatred, then we shall rebuild ourselves and the world with us with baseless love. Ahavat hinam. So we have the task as believers of the Messiah to show others. Let me tell you a story that really impacted me greatly. I don't know if you read this, but there was this story about this Satanist, this guy who was a priest of the Satan Church or wherever in South Africa. And the guy renounced to all that and accepted Yeshua as his savior. And you know why he accepted Yeshua and left all this stuff behind him? It's because he said the Christians love me without anything. They didn't say, oh, you're doing all wrong, Satan is going to consume you, anything like that. They say one time he was in a radio interview. So they were interviewing and there was a Christian. At the end of the session, after they talked, the person came to him and hugged him really hard and say, I love you. And he said that for the first time he felt love because he had a life of despair and terrible things happening to him. And for the first time, he felt that somebody loved him without any attachments. And that made him consider the idea that maybe he was wrong. And there was something real in these Christians that were preaching this loving Jesus. And he, after a couple of months, he decided to renounce everything down. We're talking about, guys, we're talking not like a witch doctor or whatever. We're talking about a Satanist, somebody devoted to worship Satan. He renounced Satan because he felt loved. You know how powerful is love? We need a lot of work. We need to prepare the ground. But it's going to be to transformation of love. From sinat hinam to ahavat hinam, based on love. So I wanted to leave you with this, and I think it's time. So Shabbat Shalom.